Sports Desk at the Columbus Dispatch presents the BuckeyeXtra Basketball Podcast. With your host, Ohio State basketball beat writer Adam Jardy.
Brady Batiste says, "Give me the rock." Here it goes. Up and away. Slam jam bam. And now he does a little dance.
Now, the BuckeyeXtra Basketball Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Adam Jardy from the Columbus Dispatch. Today is Saturday, January 24th, 2026. It's my official duty to welcome you into episode 526 of the BuckeyeXtra Men's Basketball Podcast. Welcome to Jubilation City. Welcome to, the third podcast of the week. And welcome to my hotel room here in Ann Arbor. It's well past midnight at this point. Ohio State, a couple hours ago, tipped off at the Chrysler Center and battled Michigan for a good 33 minutes. A game with 9 ties and 12 lead changes. The Buckeyes were neck and neck with number 3 Michigan, and in the running for a real signature win that I think would have had them ranked in the top 25 on Monday. But ultimately, Michigan had too much. Ohio State came up lacking in a couple of critical areas in the final 7 minutes. And the final tonight was Michigan 74, Ohio State 62. Now, this drops Ohio State to 0-2 in games where opponents put a jersey in the rafters at halftime. Washington did the same thing a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago now at this point. But Michigan tonight put Trey Burke's jersey in the rafters. His number 3 will hang up there after his 2 seasons with the Wolverines. Central Ohio native, not retired, but recognized, or I can't remember the exact phrase they're using. So potentially other players can wear number 3 going forward, like Elliot Cadeau, who had 8 assists in this game. Only 6 points, but 8 assists. There's only so much really to say about this game, I think, because to some degree, we've seen a script like this kind of play out at some point or another this season. This was Ohio State's 4th game against a ranked team, and granted, the highest rated ranked team that Ohio State's played. But Ohio State now falls to 0-4 against ranked teams this season, and will go back home now to host Penn State on Monday. Still in need of a signature win, and beating Penn State on Monday, if the Buckeyes are able to do that, will not go down as a signature win, but will be an interesting test for Ohio State coming out of this game, because the Buckeyes fall to 13-6 overall, 5-4 in the Big Ten, still holding steady in the mid-30s at KenPom. They're 37th there right now. And again, played well enough for 33 minutes to have a chance to steal this one on the road. But again, just come up short and find themselves waiting for that signature win type of opportunity. And there are chances that still lie ahead. But Ohio State's going to have to grab one of them at some point. And this was one that felt like it was there for the taking for a while before Michigan pulled away. So you look at Ohio State's box score, and a couple things jump out. First, that John Mobley Jr. with another strong game. He had 22. Was really Ohio State's most consistent offensive option. Christoph Tilley had 17 and played well. Hit 2 threes. One of them was banked in. So, say what you want about that. But he was 2 of 4 from 3. And John Mobley was 4 of 10 from 3. So that makes the 2 of them 6 for 14. The rest of the Buckeyes were 2 for 13. Amari Bynum was 1 for 3. Bruce Thornton was 1 for 5. Devin Royal was 0 for 3. And Tayson Chapman and Colin White each missed 1. So Ohio State gets 22 from Mobley, 17 from Christoph Tilley, only 10 from Bruce Thornton. He did have 9 rebounds, but Bruce Thornton was 3 of 11 in this game, and he went 1 of 5 from 3, also 3 of 4 from the line. Bruce looks like he's wearing down a little bit. His shot looks a little short. Michigan's physicality certainly impacted him in this game. It didn't seem like there were many opportunities for him to kind of get a defender on his hip and get in the lane and finish that floater that he's been so dangerous with. 10 points were a season low for Bruce, and he just never seemed to really get untracked in this game. He finished with 2 turnovers, 2 assists. You always do have to tip the cap to the just toughness, because he, like I said, he was in a game where Michigan has so much size. Bruce Thornton was Ohio State's leading rebounder, tied for the team or for the game high with 9 rebounds. So he had 9, and Yaxel Lendeborg also had 9. Now Yaxel is a 6'9" forward. Bruce Thornton is a 6'2" guard. So I think that does say something about Bruce's efforts to continue to battle, even if the shot wasn't falling. And then after that, it drops off significantly. Mari Bynum, 5 points, his second straight sort of non-factor type of game. He might be hitting that freshman wall. That might be what we're seeing with Amari right now, because did not score in the Minnesota win in overtime. But I think the biggest one that jumps out to me, this was the toughest game of the year for Devin Royal. I kept thinking throughout the game, like at some point, Devin's going to get going. He finished with 4 points. He was 2 of 7 from the floor. He played 36 minutes. He dealt with foul trouble. He finished with 4, as did Bynum. But Devin was 2 of 7 from the floor, 0 of 3 from 3, did not get to the line, had 1 rebound. Just a complete non-factor tonight against a Michigan team where the Wolverines are elite in their 2-point field goal percentage and 2-point defensive field goal percentage. I thought Devin would find some space to operate, and he just frankly didn't. This was a tough game for him. He did seem pretty upset. We saw him post-game kind of in like the long huddle that leads from the locker room to where the family members are and then to the team bus. A very difficult game for him. On the other end, Michigan got 18 from Lendeborg. He had 18 and 9. He was 7 of 13 from the field, but 1 of 5 from 3. So that makes him 6 for 8 from 2. So he had 18. Trey McKinney had 12. Morris Johnson had 12 and 7. And Adai Mara had 11 and 6. Mara, in some ways, just kind of typified what some things have been like for Ohio State, because he came in shooting roughly 44% from the line. He ends up going 5 of 7 and hit some big ones in this game. So Ohio State as a team shot 41% from the field, 30% from 3. Michigan was 5 of 23 from deep. Buckeyes were only 6 of 9 from the line, and Michigan was 15 of 25. Big stat here, though, second chance points. In a 12-point win, Michigan had a 23-13 advantage in second chance points. Certainly, you can look at the bench points. Michigan had 8 players between 4 and 18 points. Ohio State had, after Mobley, Tilley, and Thornton, Bynum had 5, Royal had 4, Ivan Yagovin had 2, and Colin White had 2. So that adds up to a 23-4 advantage in points off the bench. And I did feel like Michigan wore Ohio State down as the second half progressed. And so I'm going to get into what we saw there in just a moment. Before we do, I want to remind you that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. If you subscribe, you'll automatically get the newest ones just as soon as, in this case, our man Bryce can grab them and publish them for us. While you're subscribing or downloading, please leave a review. Please click 5 stars. And please consider telling a friend. Thanks to everyone who's taking the time to do all those things. And thanks to all of you who have reached out this week. I feel like there's been a lot of back and forth. I've gotten a lot of really insightful emails from readers, especially about the attendance at the Schottenstein Center. I haven't been able to get back to everyone, but I appreciate hearing from you. And I did have quite a few who say that you would like more preview podcasts, which I can definitely appreciate. And I will see how I can try to squeeze some of those in. I can tell you there will not be a Penn State preview podcast unless we learn something crazy from Jake Diebler. We're supposed to have a Zoom interview with him on Sunday. Would be in person, but the White Death is apparently coming, and rather than have all of us drive to the arena, it looks like we're going to have a Zoom interview sometime Sunday. So if there's like breaking news, I'll try to get a podcast to you. But I have heard from quite a few of you who really liked the preview episode I did with Dylan Burkhart of UM Hoops. I can't help but wonder if maybe you just like that so much because Dylan is awesome. So that certainly played a role in it. But thanks to everyone who sent in their feedback on all that. I can't believe I actually went this far without pointing out that Ohio State did play Puff Johnson. in this game. We got the first glimpse of him in an Ohio State uniform. He played 5 minutes off the bench. He very nearly finished with a 5 trillion, but he did commit a foul. So we'll see how that continues to progress, but he did play for Ohio State. And like I said, was on the court for 5 minutes. Let's get to this stretch where the game flipped. And this had been back and forth. Ohio State trailed at the half, but then got out to a really strong start thanks to John Mobley. It was 33-30 at the half. And on the first possession of the half, Mobley comes up with the steal, and he comes down and hits a jumper that I actually thought was a three-pointer, but I guess he must have been on the line. So that pulled Ohio State within 1. Michigan gets a free throw, and then Amari Bynum scores on a drive. It's 34-34. Yaxel Lendeborg misses 2 free throws. Mobley hits a 3. Christoph Tilley hits a 3. Michigan calls timeout with 17:31 to go. Ohio State's up 40-34. And then it just starts to slip away from Ohio State, but they are still, it was an 11-0 run for Michigan to go ahead 45-40 with 14:57 to go, capped by a 3-point play from Trey McKinney where he backed down Colin White and drew the foul while scoring, converted the 3-point play. Colin White, the Michigan fans were very much aware of what he said after the Minnesota win. Every time he checked in, they booed. We heard it. It was loud. They were not happy to see Colin White, who finished with 2 points, 2 rebounds, 2 fouls in 9 minutes of playing time. But so Ohio State gives up this 11-0 run. It's down 45-40, but then Amari Bynum hits a 3. And then Michigan turns it over. Amari Bynum takes a charge. Michigan turns it over. And then Christoph Tilley banks in a 3-pointer with 12:42 to go. That makes it 46-45 Ohio State. And it was still 50-50 Ohio State, and the Buckeyes were within 52-50. And Christoph Tilley goes to the line with 8:09 to go. He's got both sides of the 1-and-1. He hits the first, misses the second. So Ohio State's down 1. And the Wolverines end up getting a deep 3-pointer from Elliot Cadeau. Devin Royal looked like he was late on his coverage. It's 55-51. This is where the game flips, and I just feel like I started in the moment. I mentioned it in the live blog, and it came to a head for sure because Thornton got the ball into the paint and he kind of hesitated. You could feel the pressure of Michigan's size impacting him here. And so he gets to like his normal spot in the paint, but he misses. Like he hesitates and then it comes up short. So Michigan comes the other way, up 4, but Tilley gets a steal. And Morez Johnson ends up fouling him at the other end. That takes us to the under 8 media timeout, 7:13 to go. Ohio State's down 4, and Christoph Tilley is going to the line. And Tilley has been a reliable free throw shooter. He's came into the game near 80%. Has been one of the sort of under the radar things that has made Ohio State's offense click, is that he has been elite at getting to the line and then finishing, certainly for a big man. So he goes to the line, and I should have asked him about this because we did talk to him, but the ref gives him the ball and he like gave the ball back like there was something on it or it needed wiped or something. And the fans did not like that. They booed even louder. So he gets the ball back and then he misses the front end. And then not only does he miss the front end, but like in the battle for the rebound, Devin Royal immediately gets called for a foul. Like not even a second ticks off the clock. So Ohio State goes from being down 4 with one of its best free throw shooters at the line for a 1-and-1. Does not convert at the line. Devin Royal gets called for a foul. And then Mara goes down at the other end and on a 1-on-1 situation hits them both. And that flips things. It went from Ohio State potentially being down 2 or being down 1 if maybe they missed a shot but get the rebound and someone hits a 3. But it's now a 6-point deficit. So quick 4-point swing with literally no time going off the clock. And you go from free throws at one end to free throws at the other end. Pretty wild. And then the next possession, Ohio State down 6. Tilley throws a lob to Mari Bynum but turns it over. Michigan comes down and Will Cheddar misses a 3-pointer, but Michigan gets the offensive rebound. Elliot Cadeau hits his second 3-pointer of the game. Those are the only 6 points that he scores all game. But now it's a 9-point deficit, 6:30 to go in the game. Ohio State calls timeout. You could feel this was the first time it truly got loud at the Chrysler Center. Like it was a good crowd. It was a full crowd. Ohio State kept the crowd out of it until really this point of the game, and then there was no. They were unable to draw a line at this point. So Ohio State calls timeout, and they get the ball to Tilly, and he draws a goaltending call on Mara. So Ohio State's within 7. But then Cadeau just picks apart the defense and drops an easy pass to Mara, who dunks it 63-52 at this point. Mobley hits a 3 to momentarily stop the bleeding. But then you have Namari Burnett misses on a drive, but nobody checks Mara, who just dunks it. Now it's an 8-point deficit. Mobley tries to drive. He gets stripped. Yaxel Lendenborg scores. It's 66-56. Ohio State calls a timeout with 4:30 to go. They try to inbound the ball, and Michigan put Mara, all 7'3" of him, on Mobley, who was trying to inbound it. And Mara just jumped up and took the lob pass that he was throwing on the baseline out of bounds play. Michigan goes down the other way. Trey McKinney hits his only 3-pointer of the game. It's now a 13-point deficit. Mobley comes down and misses a shot, and you get a Morez Johnson 3-point miss. But then Mara gets the offensive rebound over Bruce Thornton, who, giving up 13 inches to Mara, is trying to box him out, but he gives up the rebound, keeps the possession going. Amari Bynum commits a foul, 2 free throws, 3:17 to go, 71-56. The game is over at this point. It ends up being a 19-4 run for the Wolverines, who took a 52-51 lead and blew it open to 71-56. And that was the game. And the common thread in that sequence was bad offensive possession leads to bad defensive possession, leads to another bad offensive possession, leads to someone not getting a rebound, someone not boxing out. And I don't really know how much there is to say about some of that stuff. Like, when we talked to Ohio State's players after the game, I asked Mobley, said, like, what changed in there? He said, they're a good team. They were the more connected team at the end, the more aggressive team at the end. They got a lot of the 50-50 balls we missed. He said, that's also on us too. We didn't play with that same grit and energy we played with to start the half and start the game. We've got to keep that consistency. We all know that. Penn State's got to see us on Monday. I said, well, how do you stop doing that? Like, I don't know how many times this season we've heard, we got to, get those 50-50 balls and, those little plays. We get how do you stop doing that? And he said, we've just got to push through. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's fatigue, but just got to push through. That's all I've really got to say about that. Tonight, it did seem like it might be fatigue, and it seemed like mistakes were piling up and guys struggled to pull themselves out of it. Like I said, I kept thinking, like, this game is not Devin Royal's fault, but I kept thinking, like, Devin's going to, get a couple of buckets here and he's going to settle things, or he's going to come up with. He never did. Like, this was an off game for him. And when Amari Bynum is continuing to struggle and you don't have Brandon Knoll, and you're not getting anything from your other guys off the bench, I do think that fatigue probably ends up playing a role in a game like this, because Michigan, the level did not drop as they continued to sub guys in. There was never really a moment where you thought, man, Michigan's really missing this guy on the court. It was like, wherever 5 were out there, we're playing pretty consistently and we're playing pretty hard and we're making Ohio State work for things. And I felt like by the end, it did just wear Ohio State down a bit. So I asked Christoph Tilley about that run. What were you not able to do to stop Michigan as it pulled away? He said, it's hard to ask what we were unable to do, because obviously we didn't find a solution to stop them. He said, we talk about it every time. The small things, not beautiful things we need to do, like box out, get the rebound, get the 50-50 balls. If we do that, the game's going to look very different and the outcome too. So, tonight felt like another example of this team just sort of is what it is, and it can play really strong stretches of basketball. It was just a week ago that we saw the Buckeyes dominate UCLA from start to finish. And this is a team that continues to show that it can compete with anybody. and it is not far off from putting it together, but we keep having these conversations about 50-50 balls and the little plays. When we talked to Jake Diebler about it, and he talked about like that sequence in the second half where Michigan pulled away, he said, stands out to me the most are Yaxel's offensive rebounds. He said the game was right there. We overhelp, we give up a wide open three. We gamble, give up another three. Now all of a sudden a 5-point game is whatever it ended up being. He said that's on us. I asked, like, what are you trying to do to stop those moments? Like what are you telling your team? What are you trying to adjust when the game is getting away from you there in that? He said, what you want to see there is great execution and poise on the offensive end. Then you got to do that defensively. You can't now, because maybe they made a couple plays, lose your discipline in gaps. That to me was a little disappointing. Once they had a couple of those plays, then we compounded that with a critical error on us. We didn't make them earn it like we had been for the majority of the game. When I asked about Devin and Bruce struggling, he said they committed a lot. They committed to a lot of ball screens. Bruce, I thought there were times all of us over dribbled in the paint. We didn't kick it quick enough and took one dribble too many. And when you allow a team to corral you like that inside and then you over dribble, that allows them to make you pick it up and now get back and take away guys in the perimeter. So they extended really high and pressured, and we're physical on the perimeter. We tried to cut that and drive it and did pretty well against it at times. They're a really good defensive team. We had some really good stretches offensively, manufactured some looks we typically make. So Bruce did leave the game with about a minute to go after Yaxel dunked on both he and Christoph Tilley, and both of them were a little shaken up on that play. Bruce was on the ground for a minute or two. Remember, the training staff came over and checked on him, as did Diebler. They talked for a minute or two. Bruce eventually got up, made his way to the bench. He did get an ovation from or at least polite applause from the Michigan crowd. And then he sat out the remainder of the game. Did see Bruce leave the locker room, walking around. He looked fine. I didn't have any sort of ice or wrap or anything on, or any sort of protective brace that we could see. So Diebler said they'll know more, but he said that Bruce told me he's fine. So didn't seem to be any real concern there that this is something that'll hold him back going forward. But certainly not what you want to see at the end of a game where you're already losing and then Bruce Thornton goes down. We did see some opportunities for Tayson Chapman, and he played 6 minutes. He missed 2 shots. I thought they were good shots. He was aggressive, but he did absolutely whiff on a defensive assignment that led to a wide open bucket on a putback, and he got pulled for that. And he didn't make his way back in the game, I don't think, after that point. It certainly wasn't just him. You look at Ohio State's bench, and we talk about guys getting potentially worn down, but I don't think there's any player in this team I get more questions about than Gabe Cupps. Gabe played only 7 minutes in this game after 14 against Minnesota, 19 against UCLA. He took 1 shot, and it was, if I remember right, it was rejected. He had an assist. He had a turnover. He looked like he's looked like for large portions of the season where he didn't really threaten offensively. It's starting to look more and more like that Oregon game where he had 9 points and was 3 of 4 from the field and had a couple of rebounds. He had 9 points in that game. If you kept starting with the North Carolina game, he had 4 scoreless games, 9 points against Oregon, 2 scoreless games, 2 points against Minnesota, another scoreless game. So still clearly just not quite there for him. And it was harder for Ohio State in this game to try to play some of the 3-guard stuff that we have seen them do, where they've had Mobley, Thornton, and Cupps on the floor together. I don't have those analytics, but I don't recall seeing that a whole lot in this game. I just think it was Michigan's size created some significant issues for the Buckeyes, and I think that was part of the whole wearing down and how this game started to slip away for the Buckeyes. Before we wrap this one up, because there's not a whole lot else to say. I did want to mention this because I was looking at, well, first of all, the 74 points tie a season low for Michigan. And it's kind of wild. This ended up being was Ohio State's worst offensive efficiency rating of the season. 95.3 points per 100 possessions. Defensively, Ohio State allowed 113.7. So Ohio State had a better defensive performance in this game than it did in the win at Northwestern, the win at Rutgers, the home win against UCLA, the home win against IU Indy. So when Ohio State allows this adjusted offensive efficiency of at least 110 points per game, it is now 4-3 this season. But for Michigan, offensively, again, this was tied for the fewest points that the Wolverines have scored this season. But this was the 5th worst offensive game of the season for Michigan, and it's 2nd worst in Big Ten play. Its worst rating in Big Ten play was a 74-72 win at Penn State back on January 6th, which kind of starts this run where Michigan has been a little bit more in the pack than blowing everybody out like it was for certainly long stretch of the season. And defensively, Michigan, again, the number 1 team in in 2-point field goal percentage offense and defense. Ohio State was 50% from 2. That's the 3rd worst game of the season for the Wolverines. And offensively, okay. Well, offensively, Michigan was 22 of 29 from 2. That's his best performance of the season. That's 75.9%. But when you do look at just the overall offensive efficiency rating, Ohio State played well enough over the balance of the game to win this game. It was its offense that came up lacking. And that's not something we've said a whole lot about Ohio State this season. I do think that was worth pointing out looking at this game as a whole. So now before I wrap this up, those of you that have been listening to the podcast for a while know that one of my favorite things in the Big Ten is the PA announcer at Chrysler Arena has an unusual tone when it comes to announcing. Like, they will obviously say the name of whoever scores, but it's a very sardonic way that he says the names, like almost like in a discouraging way. And what really made this ring in my head years ago when I started on this beat was the way that he would say Mark Loving, and it just kind of became a thing, right? It cracked me up. And so I do keep my voice memos open on my phone, and I try to record him saying as many different names as possible. So I have a 20-odd second clip that I sent to Bryce for him to splice in here. I did warn him beforehand that I was planning on doing this. So hopefully you enjoy this. It's only 15 seconds. Ultimately becomes hard to multitask on quite that many fronts as the game is going on. But I hope you enjoy this clip here of the Michigan PA announcer saying a couple names from this year's Ohio State team.
Christoph Tillman, Colin White, John Lundy Jr., Puff Johnson.
All right, so hopefully you enjoyed that. Like I said, I always get a kick out of it. That's gonna wrap this one up now. Actually, I have one more thought, and I meant to mention this earlier too. But when we're talking about that stretch where Michigan just pulled away and Ohio State talking about 50-50 balls and things like that, it just made me think back to the last time Ohio State did win in Ann Arbor, when Kyle Young's jersey was ripped because Xavier Simpson was reaching and grabbing as he was falling and gets called for a technical. And we have interviews after that game, and Kyle Young finishes with the number 50 jersey on, and he hits those big free throws, and Caleb Weston's got a huge scratch on his face, and he says a saber tooth had clawed him. Ohio State could have used some of that tonight. Just food for thought. And now I'm going to wrap this one up and get some sleep before anybody bangs on my door and complains about noise I'm making here. As we are late into the night. But as always, you can send along your questions, your comments, your love notes, your hate mail, and otherwise constructive criticism to me at Adam Jardy on Twitter or ajardy@dispatch.com. thank you again for listening, and thanks to Bryce for putting this together and dropping that sound clip in there. Like I said, unless there's some crazy news on Sunday, I'll be back with you Monday night after Ohio State's game against Penn State, which marks the midpoint of the Big Ten, which is wild. So until then, be kind, take care, and we'll talk soon.
Be sure and subscribe to the Buckeye Extra podcast in the iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, or on Stitcher.